Hello, it's a Yorkshireman now living in Wales, and I just thought I'd do another video whilst I'm waiting for some replies. So today I'd sort of like to cover the origins of the 20-mile-an-hour limit, and that does sound like a sci-fi movie title, but to be honest, at this moment I do think we are living in a bit of sci-fi times when odd things are happening and no one's asking us. So how did it all start? Let me think about this. And I believe it's always been part of an agenda regarding climate change, searching for net zero, and I would say restricting how us normal everyday folk can move about and live our lives. Don't forget, us everyday normal folk fund everything. We give money to our governments who then get to spend it without asking us. So the key moment I would say is when in the UK they introduced the net zero legislation in 2019. I do believe that was done by Boris Johnson. Since then, a lot of other organisations, governments and everything else have jumped on the bandwagon. And the key is to achieve net zero by 2050. Now, given that net zero, it's sort of like a term, and I sort of think to myself, well, I do know we contribute to climate issues, so does that mean that we as everyday folk somehow have to be controlled or eradicated? So for me that doesn't make me feel so good. Now by 2050 I have a feeling I might have passed away, but I'm more concerned about children living now, grandchildren and everybody else. Is it really fair on them that they should be compelled to have net zero forced on them? Because I don't remember anybody asking me. No one's really said, how do you feel about it, Philip? Do you want this net zero thing? Because my answer is always going to be no, unless I can see all the evidence and I can make an informed decision on it. So as I say, who are the main players? Well, I developed this slide to sort of show you the main players, and I like to call them now the others, because I think they are the others, and I think we can be called the non-others. So the others, you can sort of split them into a couple of groups. The World Bank Group, United Nations, World Economic Forum, World Meteorological Organization, World Health Organization, EU, because, and I will explain why they're in with the others. And we also have a couple of charities which we all recognise in Wales. And I call them the others because they're unelected by us and they are unaccountable to us. That is really, really clear. Now the other ones, still in the other group, or the others, is our governments. Now our governments are funded by us and we elect them. But slight difference is, like all the other others, they are unaccountable to us. And we know that now. Because when the 20-mile-an-hour got introduced, it was just basically said you're having it. Despite many people, just under 500,000 people saying we don't want it, it was just forced on us. And if you remember the discussions in the Senate, it then turned out it was our fault because we didn't understand it, which is always that code for people still saying you're thick. So the other question then I want to try and answer is, how are all these others funded? Well, they all have contribution schemes or subscription schemes, a bit like in a gym, and it would appear to be very difficult to get out of it. Now a lot of that money comes from the public, from the governments, who have to be a member of them. Now the World Economic Forum, they're slightly different because they're funded in the main by private organisations. And according to what I've found, there's 1,000 members, but most of these have a minimum $5 billion turnover per year. So that means they're quite big. Another couple of people who sort of also fund it are Bill Gates Foundation and Jeff Bezos Earth Fund, I think it's called. So again, private individuals of immense wealth are also funding some of these others. So that's how they get funded. So the next question then is, so what do they have in common? Well, I've had a quick look at all the manifestos, all the plans, whatever you want to call them, and the words might change, but they always have these sort of things in column, and that is ultimately they don't want any vehicles. And I'm going to say private vehicles if I think I'm correct on that, because they'll never come out and say it, because what they do is they say you have to reduce your car use. You need to limit your car use. Now when I say car use, a lot of people have been conned and going out and getting an EV car. A car's a car. And they also have things like 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. And that's about reducing speed. Again, it's a common theme. They also go on about active travel. So active travel, you need to walk, you need to hop, you need to skip, you need to jump more. In other words, no cars. They also say things like use public transport. In my experience, if there's a bus or something else on a regular time and it's easy to get to and it's cheap, people will use it because it's convenient and it's there. But that's not the case these days. A lot of public transport's disappeared. And this other thing in the background is 20-15 minute neighbourhoods or cities. Not sure why they want us to do them apart from control. They also say things like we have to be more equal. We need to have a better community, and we need to make where we live now more livable. I'll be honest, I will have to cover these things in more detail because they just need more exploring by myself and maybe do a video on them. My question about all of this to all of you is, were we asked? I have never ever been asked about any of these things at all. So as I was doing this, there was one thing and I just kept popping in my head. I thought, well, I've heard some of this before. And then I had a quick look, and yes, sure enough, it was from the Man from Uncle TV series. So as you can see on this slide, I have literally put together the TV logo, and as you can see, the Man from Uncle, and as you can see, all the others use a world. So then, I also then pulled out the TV description of it all, and the bad people were called Thrush. Well, yes, we all know what that means, don't we? And then I've just highlighted in red the aims, and the aims is removal of undesirables and subjugation of humanity. Subjugation also means suppression. And when I think about things like you will do this, you will do that, you will walk, and you will reduce your car use, that is suppression. And I'll be honest, that's not for me. I won't be doing that. And I suggest the rest of you ask yourself that question. Is that what you want, and who asked you? I then come on to the other bit, and this bit is about the goal of world domination. All these different others have very similar agendas. They're not different, they are the same, and they are forcing or pushing or influencing that agenda onto the governments. So that's what's happening. So they're going for world domination. In addition to that, and then this does make me laugh, elaborate schemes to achieve their ends. One of the schemes I'd say they did was the manipulation or introduction of net zero by some different means, and from there everything else always goes back to that piece of legislation. They say, oh well, why do you want to do that? Oh, so we can meet net zero. Again, remember, net zero by 2050. Now, don't get me wrong, if we are going for things like net zero, I'd say yes, but do it with common sense. Don't annoy the people who fund it all. The least you can do is ask them. But I'm more of the opinion now that if they were so sure, they would have had a referendum on this. They would have said, let's ask the people. Let's see what you want to do, because you're the ones who are living it all. So the other people involved closer to home, as you can see now, so we have Lee Waters. He was doing that job as whatever it was, 20-mile-an-hour limit ambassador, don't know what it was, can't remember. But what I did notice, previous work, he worked for Sustrans, and then after that he then worked for the Institute of Welsh Affairs. Both these are charities. And in one of them, national director at Sustrans, and the other one, he was the director. Now, as they are charities, I've looked into these charities already. And his name doesn't appear on any of the paperwork. Now, as a director, I'd expect his name to be logged with Companies House, but it's not. But he did these roles for near enough 10 years, and I can't really find any reference to him in any documentation registered in Companies House. Now, I find that odd. Now, if anybody else knows any different, then please let me know. The reason I find it odd, because what job was he doing in there if he's not listed on the documentation? But as I say, I could be wrong. The other person is this bloke here, Xavier Bryce, who is the CEO of Sustrans, but he's also sits on the board of the Office of Rail and Road. Now, and again, I think this is a Welsh board, if I remember. Now, I then looked at his job history, and he's spent all his life working in Transport for London. So London's a big city, many people, about 3 times as many people as those in Wales. And he's done many things, but he was also, as you can see, private secretary to the Mayor of London, who was Boris Johnson. So in terms of like, has he any real life experience? Looking at his jobs, I'd say maybe not. But you live in London or any big city, more so London, because you have lots of transportation available. The ideas there do not transfer to other cities. It doesn't work. So my sort of thought is, well, why is he interfering in Wales then? I mean, you could say I'm interfering, but remember, I now live here. And I'm doing this because I want the place I live to be a good place to live. So, in summary, a lot of these people are basically unelected and unaccountable to us. But even the ones who we elect are still unaccountable. And I keep thinking, why do they want it? Why do the others want this? And I have my own little theory on this, is that basically they've had a taste of the planet without us none-others being around. And their aim is to keep that going. So we don't have a car, we can't travel anywhere. And I also suspect they will be reducing the amount of air travel we can do. And that will be by increasing the costs, and then by saying it's on some sort of achieving net zero. However, remember, during lockdowns, they travelled, they flew, they met up, they did everything they wanted to, because they were the others. They are special, they are the elite. So, hopefully, you've had some food for thought from that. Some of the questions I would say you need to be asking yourself is, has anybody asked me about this? Is this something I want for my future, for my children's future, and for my grandchildren's future? As I say, people need to start asking us. No one objects to anything like this being done in a sensible, rational way, because we can achieve it, but the rate we're going, we're just going to end up in some sort of science fiction film. That's my thoughts on this. So, thank you for watching. Hopefully you found it interesting, you found it useful. Tick, subscribe and like. Thank you for watching.